Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Magic Hour. I'm not really sure what I want today's topic to be. I was thinking more along the lines of fact versus fiction when it comes to spirit. Essentially, are horror movie depictions not necessarily the best way forward when it comes to understanding the paranormal? That's something I feel very passionate about, and something I wanted to talk about today, but we might just float around a couple of different topics. Whatever comes up, comes up. I didn't really have a set topic in mind, but I love this podcast. I love a good yap. So, something that I've been thinking about lately is not only are horror movies very popular, but they also have evolving ideas about what spirit is, even though they fit within conventional tropes. But I seem to feel like a lot of the modern horror nowadays, it does explore different levels. Like, I'm not really a horror watcher, but it seems to be more emotionally intelligent from what I have seen, beyond just ghost scary. And I think that's something really important to note. A good family friendly example I can think of that I have seen is The Haunted Mansion, not the Eddie Murphy version, the version after that. So the version that came out probably 2 years ago. This is a little bit of a spoiler if you haven't seen the film, but the main character is dealing with the loss of his wife, and he wants to be contacted by his wife the whole film. And from what I remember, he goes to lengths to do this and, hope she'll come through in a seance, all of those things. But it's at the end where he has, I'm not going to spoil it too much, but he has a sign of his late wife. And that comes through in a very unexpected yet subtle way. And the whole ethos of the new Haunted Mansion, I felt, was moving away from these very ghoulish and garish sort of depictions of spirit and going into a more subtle, more gentle approach. And I really liked that because it's closer to my experience of spirit. I think this podcast is really going to be about horror movies versus your own experience of the paranormal. Me personally, if spirit wants to be loud, they'll be loud. But if spirit wants to be quiet, they'll be quiet. It's like people when they're alive, right? When people are alive, we have ways to announce our presence in small and big ways, right? And horror movies, much to my reluctance or disdain, tend to favour the more loud approach, the more scaremongering approach, when that's not what spirit necessarily is. And it's like I talked about on the last episode about when things are depicted in a certain way, it can dissuade people from embarking upon a connection with spirit. And going back to the Haunted Mansion, the main character, he faces all these more loud and outrageous characters who are more malevolent, yet when it comes to his own wife, as I've talked about, it is a lot more gentle, and it's not what you would expect. You're so used to these ghosts appearing fully formed, appearing, as very much I'm here, that a subtler presence is more, not jarring necessarily, but it subverts your expectation, right? And so For me, personally, I'm gonna dispel a few things. So, first of all, do not rely on horror films as an accurate source of information as to what the paranormal is actually like. For example, as I said, big versus small, loud versus quiet, because you're gonna be sort of misled and you're gonna be made to be fearful. You're like, if I do this, it will provoke this. That's not necessarily true. Okay? First thing I'm going to tell you now is, and I always stand by this, and yes, there are cleansing rituals for a reason, and you do have to be very careful, but I will stand by this. If you do not want a spirit in your vicinity, if you do not want to be open to energies, you can close that off. Okay? It's not like you see ghastly things. I choose not to see ghastly things, as I said in the last podcast, so I don't see them. Okay? That is something I communicate very clearly. And I truly believe that this depiction of spirit as things that are almost pestilent, is pestilent the right word? Pestful, like who are fear-mongering and scaring you, is not helpful. It's not right. As I said, it just makes people feel that they can't venture into those subjects. And yes, you do have to be careful, and I was kind of heavy-handed the last podcast. You do have to be careful, don't get me wrong, but horror is so fixated on the negative aspects of spirit that it almost undermines the positive effects it can have on one's life, on one's approach to life. I know for me personally, knowing that spirit is there and is always with me makes me stronger, it makes me more resilient. And as I've said, I would never convert people, but speaking on my experience, spirit will come through in small little signs here and there. It's like a thinking of you type deal, okay? You know, they really do show you what, what to focus on and what to be drawn towards if you're on that type of spiritual path. And if you hear any noise, it's my fan of my computer, but spirit genuinely the vast majority of spirit has no malevolence to it whatsoever. It's not something to be afraid of. All it is residual energy. And it's them saying hello. It's not meant to frighten or bamboozle or, if anything, because I don't judge spirit much, if anything, it comes through as very intriguing, and it makes you realize, wow, there is life after all these things, It makes you feel more accompanied through life. I mean, I've spoken about this before. I go through a lot with my physical disability. I am a wheelchair user. And I think for me personally, to know that there is a force that is greater than me is very comforting. To know that there is somewhere we go to. I don't know what it is. I can't be the major authority on it. But to know there is somewhere we go to, that is comforting to me personally. And I wish for everybody to experience that and not just to believe that the paranormal is some big scary thing. Because it's not a big scary thing. And I'm sorry I rambled to get to the point, but truly the whole point of spirit is, all it is a different dimension. It is a different plane of existence. And there can be negative energies out there. But I only invite positive energies in. And when you learn and when you're skilled, you do learn how to do that. And you can get help if it is required. But it's kind of like And the way I think about it is, it's like, and this is a valid fear, don't get me wrong, but it's like if I swam one time, and the first time I swam, I flailed around and never swam again. And that is a valid fear. But if I didn't dip my toes back in, I would never learn to swim, right? So instead of relying on horror tropes, thinking, oh, ghosts are boogeymen, I think thinking of spirit as a residual of what's been left behind is more helpful of energy persevering, as it were. And I thought of WandaVision, the grief persevering. I think that is so much more impactful, and I wish Hollywood and these major studios would show spirit as it is, instead of making a sort of, it's almost farcical, like a farce of these spiritual concepts. And yes, most things are going to be parodied, and they're going to have the mick taken out of them, right? We all know this, right? Like, everything is going to be parodied in a sense. But I really do believe that I think a horror movie that would subvert expectations and make the ghost be gentle instead is just way more beneficial to the audience. I like silly family movies with ghosts because I think they do depict the gentler nature of spirit that is a lot more accurate. I would say 9 times out of 10, they're more like Casper, right? They're just, spirit has a sense of humour, I tell you that. Most of the time when I've gone through something, I'll tell you a funny story. There was a time where I was very anxious about something, and I had my phone on, and I'm pretty sure, I can't quite remember, it was either Why Worry by the Andrews Sisters, or it was that famous, I think it was the Andrews Sisters, because that's what was ironically funny, is that I was worried and very anxious about this thing that had occupied my mind. I can't remember for the life of me what it was. And it was Why Worry came on. Let's just say, for the sake of the thing, Why Worry came on. I'm pretty sure it was Why Worry by the Andrews Sisters. And I'd heard that before on shuffle, but I sort of listened to it. I went, skip past it. And a few minutes later, I am not joking, a car with the number plate Why Worry, Y as in the letter Y and worry, rolled past my van. And I was like, thank you. And that's all you do. When you get a sign, you say thank you, because you know that that's confirmation. And you can think I'm like deranged or whatever. I don't really like that terminology, but some people will listen to this and think, as I've said, she's lost her marbles. But I truly know and have seen so many signs like that in my life where it's very cheeky. Spirit is very cheeky, right? They only want to say hello. It's not, most spirit does not have a malicious intent. They do not wish to harm. Okay, it's just not that way. And as I said, it's so frustrating when that is the only one-dimensional depiction you have, is ghosts that harm. If you can think of any other more nuanced depictions, let me know. But I truly think, I do applaud, there's a lot more emotionally intelligent horror, as I said. I'm also thinking, I've heard of it, I haven't seen it, but Bly Manor and Haunting of Hill House apparently are really good depictions of the supernatural, of paranormal, whatever you want to call it, of spirit. Spirit, most of the time, as I said, is just a kindly force. And if you do everything right and you assert yourself, it can play a positive force in your life. And one thing I will say, as I said, always ask for your spirit guides and for positive energies, your spirit guides specifically. And make sure, don't try not to ask for specific people, because you don't know who's coming through, and anybody can talk. But as I said, most things are positive, but there is that majority. They will come through, and they do mess around. That's why I don't do a Ouija board. One thing I'm going to say, if you're a newbie, as I've said, this is open to newbies, never ever, 100% ever, do a Ouija board, because you can be very lucky. A Ouija board is a portal, it is a gateway, right? So you do have to do all the proper things. You have to say goodbye properly. You have to put I believe it's called, now I always get this word wrong, I believe it's called the panchet, the piece that you move around the board. Always put that in its proper spot. Always say goodbye. Always. Never use a spirit box unless you know what you're doing. And again, here I come with the heavy-handedness. But I want you to know that while you do have to take these precautions, and they are extremely important because you never know, you don't have to be primarily afraid of spirit just because a horror movie tells you to. That's what I'm trying to say. And if you're open to spirit, spirit will reflect back to you. It will show itself to you. Family members have passed away. When I've needed them, I've seen things that remind me of them, and I just feel that they're there. I know that they're there, and I talk to my family all the time. I just really want people to be less afraid. That's my ramble, really. I don't want people to feel like they have to be petrified, because they don't. Okay, and I still have moments where something might startle me and I might get a little bit keyed up. But I just got to remember that I'm always divinely protected and safe. And that's what you guys have to remember, okay? You guys listening wherever you are have got to remember you're always safe, right? You're always safe, even when things are grey in the world, when they are gloomy in the world. You are always safe. Even when things look incredibly dark, you are always safe. I promise you that. I promise you. And look, there are things that, as I said, there are real world issues we can't get away from. But when it comes to supernatural and what you delve into, I promise you, if you ask for safety, it will always be given to you. Always. If you ask for your spirit guides, help will be given to you. Okay, I've had so many experiences that I just can't discount that world now. And if every episode is going to be me gushing about spirit, so be it, right? Something I think about all the time is the Queen Mary, which is a haunted ship that is docked in California. God bless. I hope the Queen Mary is doing okay with everything going on. And I will find some resources for the California wildfires. I don't know, actually. I think I'll find donation links for the California wildfires. And I'll put them down below. I have been looking into as well the prisoners who are fighting the fires. Very interesting stuff, and they deserve more payment. But this isn't a political podcast. However, going back to the Queen Mary, the Queen Mary is a haunted ship. It has a lot of spirits on it. People see, hear things, everything. I want to go there someday to see what I can pick up on. Something that captivated me is, and I think, have I talked about this? No, I haven't talked about this. I've talked about it on other social media. I haven't talked about it on the podcast. There is a ghost in the boiler room, and the name it gave was George. So that's how I'm going to describe George. And I am going to get, let me see. I'm going to get up a piece of information that I put connections with and I found quite interesting. Because as I said, spirit is what it is, right? Like, spirit doesn't have the same, they were humans once, but they don't have the same emotional processing that we do, right? They will say things very bluntly. If you ask spirit a question, how you interpret the answer is what it is. No ifs, ands, or buts. Spirit is very absolute, from what I have come to understand. If I ask Spirit a question, Spirit would just be like, yes, you know that, yes. Like, it's funny because when I'm going to get to the point. Ali, the waffler. So you go down to the boiler room. I've seen this on video. I don't know how accessible the ship is, unfortunately, but I do want to go there. People have gone down to the boiler room. I saw this on Loie Lane's video. I believe you can find it if you look it up. She went there on Friday the 13th. Shout out Loie. Last year, was it? Yeah, last year. And they have people go in blindfolded and they put on, because they do have like it's some sort of spiritual box. Okay, but it's all, as I said, properly done. So it's not harmful. Whatever comes in. And most of the ghosts on the Queen Mary, from what I understand, are used to guests. So they go down into this boiler room and the headphones get put on to this fellow that he'd obviously been roped in, and they ask a series of questions. So the person has the headphones on and they relay what they hear back, what comes through on whatever frequency they are using. I don't know. Loie might have explained how it works. I'm not too sure. I'd have to go watch it again. But what I do remember is they asked the ghost a question, and all he wanted them to do was play music. So all he said was, play music now. And they would keep asking about, friends here. But he was like, no, play music now. Like, he was very specific about it, and it freaked everyone out. So his favourite song is a song, it's a very old song. I believe it's a jazz standard because Ella Fitzgerald has sang it. I have the Dinah Shore version. It's called Skylark, and it's so interesting to me, and it moved me so deeply because the lyrics, I will read out some of the lyrics, but it sounds to me like a spirit who's trying to cross over. So one of the things that made me think this is the first verse literally says, have you seen a valley green with spring, where my heart can go a-journeying over the shadows and the rain to a blossom-covered lane? And I believe this is a love song, but when I first heard it, I was like, oh my God, that's so clever, and nobody is making the connection. And then the last verse says, oh Skylark, I don't know if you can find these things, but my heart is riding on your wings. So if you see them anywhere, won't you lead me there? In my opinion, that is a spirit who is trying to cross over or find some sort of solace in the fact that they are dead. And it moved me so deeply. As I said, I'm a little empath. I've said this before, but I started crying because that is the spirit that I know. That is a person who lived a life and had things they love and enjoyed in their life. And if you hear a puff of thing, that's just our fly spray. But honestly, I'm going to get a bit emotional now again because all spirit is residual of the person who's been left behind. Most spirit is like that. They were people. You don't need to be afraid of them because they were us once. They felt our emotions. They understand who the guests are. They understand that people come and visit, and I'm sure a lot of them enjoy those visits because they get company. Okay, like company is important to them. All they want is to say hello. And if it sounds like I'm very impassionate, I'm very strong on ghost rights, but I genuinely see the love that they have for the life that they led, and how so many of them that they just want to cross over and be happy. And I think about George, that's what I'm calling him because that's the name he gave, but I think about George a lot. I wonder who he was. He said some soldier related jargon like at ease, somebody who served in the army perhaps. So maybe a soldier who was being carried and died, and then whose body was shipped back on the ship perhaps, I'm not entirely sure. But to think about someone who might have died at a young age, who might have died and was unwilling to die, and all they want is peace and safety and security. That is why I'm not afraid of spirit, because they are people first. I will always see their humanity and try to figure them out before I see anything else, really, because they don't have a choice. They don't choose to communicate like that. They can choose how they communicate, but they can't choose, to be, fully flesh and blood like us. So it's up to us to decode their messages, to give them the humanity and respect they deserve, even if they're not human. And that's why I also despise a lot of horror, because it robs them of their humanity. All they are is people. I truly love spirit deeply, like the spirits of children. When you hear them, yes, it's trippy, but they're beautiful. They're beautiful little souls. They were taken way too soon, and they deserve so much respect for being brave enough to stand as a spirit, to exist in a different plane of existence. When you're older, I imagine, this is just what I feel, what Spirit is telling me, when you're older, you're ready to go into the light. But some aren't. And so I think to give them dignity, to say, oh my God, that is so brave, to adjust to a different plane of existence, even though it might frighten us, they are still part of us. At the end of the day, they are still part of this world, and they deserve respect the same as any being. That's why when people mess around with spirit and make a mockery of it, it really upsets me. Like, it really upsets me when somebody will grab a haunted item and run around scaring people with it, because you don't know what that is. Everything in life, every being on this planet, unless they are the most heinous, is deserving of respect, and spirit is the same. And I'm kind of glad in a way that a lot of horror now, even though there is spirit still mentioned, as I said, it is somewhat more emotionally intelligent, but there's a lot more psychological horror now, and I think that functions much better because, I don't know, it just feels very too terrifying and too reliant on, misled notions of ghosts. They are just us, you guys. There's nothing to be afraid of. Most of it is, as I said, just residual energy. I am a foremost defender of spirits because I believe they are genuinely kind, loving, beautiful beings. A lot of them were taken too soon, and they deserve to be embraced and appreciated for the signs they give us, for reminding us that there is more beyond this physical plane. That's just how I feel anyway. I truly love, as I said, what I do. I truly love seeing spirit thrive, get messages across to people. I love watching psychics, when you know someone is a legitimate psychic, like Tyler Henry. I love Tyler Henry because he has so much empathy and compassion, and he approaches spirit and relays messages in the way that I would expect someone to relay those messages, and he reminds us of, that we all deserve that respect and dignity, even in death. He makes it so respectful to every single person. I absolutely love psychic mediums who truly love what they do and remind us of spirit's humanity, right? I just don't want people to be like, oh my goodness, all this and that, and there's something in my room, and only if you feel that it's negative or extremely heavy, I say, would you be concerned, or you start experiencing things. But if you feel a presence and it's not harming you and it's just observing, I don't see the problem in that. You can reach out, you can try to see what sort of energy you get off it, and if you're really afraid, then you take the necessary steps to absolve that and to cross it over. But I think people have their preconceived notions about these things. I'm just shedding a bit more light on the subject. Into the light. I genuinely believe that if people focused, as I said, on the magic and positive aspects, things would be so much nicer. We would have so much research into these subjects. I really would love to do parapsychology, but you can't do a standard parapsychology degree just like parapsychology alone. You have to do it in conjunction with something. So I'd have to study real psychology, quote unquote real psychology first, before I could do parapsychology. Maybe one day, but I absolutely think that spirit is, as I said, worthy of dignity, but also worthy of study, respectful study, that then informs the whole Hollywood genres. I just really want people to know that everything is okay, right? Like, everything is okay when it comes to spirit. I want you to know that most of the time, for some reason this is coming through, but most of the time when a spirit passes over, as I said, a lot of the time, they are not in any physical pain. It's just a melding of consciousness. They just become one with all that is, and they just know everything. And my friends have told me this, and I've learnt from Tyler Henry. When we die, we go through a life review, so we see our life, all the things that we did, all the things that we could have done, and we make peace with that. And if we so choose, we go into the next life. Our soul progresses, it grows, and we choose where we're going next. Okay, this is going to be a bit controversial. So some people do believe that you do choose your family, which a lot of people take issue with and offense to, which I completely understand. I do believe for some people, not all people, I definitely think I chose my family because they were so accepting and loving of my disability. For others, it's not the case. I think it's sort of a 50-50. Some souls do. Some souls choose the path, don't choose the family. Some people choose the family and figure out the path as they go. I think it's a very even split. It's a very nuanced thing. It's not, a definitive thing for every person. The one thing that I do believe in, that we do in our lifetime, is we do sort of enter into a soul contract, whereby our soul subconsciously, unbeknownst to our physical and conscious body, agrees to undergo certain experiences, and this does not include necessarily negative experiences before people say anything. I'm aware there are some very traumatic experiences that people go through, but I believe it's more elements of growth. So, for example, meeting the person who you believe is your soulmate, that is a soul contract, right? It's something that every person agrees to in some shape or form, whatever works for them before they come to this earth. And, it took me a while to fully grasp and get on board with these concepts. But then, once I did, I was much more, once I could understand it in a way that worked for me, where it is very nuanced. And spirits told me, it doesn't have to be either or. It's not a concrete thing. It's fluid, depending on the person. It's still a soul contract, but every single soul will be different. And something I thought is very interesting that I thought I would share. I cannot remember the full conversation, but I used to watch Gaia. If you don't know Gaia, it's a spiritual network. Some people like it, some people don't. I'm just interested. I get my information from a whole lot of sources, a melting pot of sources. I do a lot of research. But they had a particular gentleman on. I can't quite remember his name. I will see if I can find it. But this gentleman, he was talking about how in reincarnation, I didn't necessarily resonate with some of what he said, but this stood out to me. And he was talking about how in reincarnation, we can die. Say, for example, someone dies in 2038, right? So someone dies in 2038, and they could wind up back in ancient Egypt, because we believe in our conscious mind that time is linear. It goes forwards and it goes backwards, but time is actually non-linear, meaning, and I'm about to break people's brains, time is not, it doesn't just flow in one direction. It's sort of scattered, right? This is part of how I understand it. Time is scattered in space, right? Time and space it's ebbing and flowing in all different ways. And so when we die, we won't necessarily go forward and jump in time. We will jump backwards. So you could die in 2024, say last year. Someone could have died in 2024, and then they go back to 1924, born a baby in 1924, because everything is existing all at once. You know that film, Everyone Everywhere All at Once? I think that's what's called Everything Everywhere All at Once. Yeah, I've watched that a bit, and I didn't understand it until I got a bit more into this. But it's basically the idea that your consciousness, you're going on a spiritual journey of sorts, and you're jumping all over the map. That's how I interpreted that movie. And so that's what happens when we die. We just go to a different place in the timeline. Some people believe in a thing called quantum immortality, which personally, I'm not sure if I do believe it or not. I can't discount it because I haven't experienced it, and I'm choosing not to experience it and allow it in my reality. But quantum immortality is fascinating. It's basically the idea that when we die, it's kind of like a video game. So we could die, but then we would spawn right back to another point in our lives, or a point just before a thing happened that caused our death, and then it would be sort of like a do-over. I believe that's how it works. Let me know if I've got that wrong, but honestly, quantum immortality, it sounds fascinating because it would add more credence to the fact that some people believe we're in a simulation. I'm one of those people a little bit. I believe there's a rhyme and reason to how this world works. When you look at the fact that manifestation is a real thing, and I could go into this for ages. But yeah, I truly believe that time is not linear, that we can jump to different timelines, we can align ourselves with different timelines, and that's how we tap into different versions of ourselves and manifest things. So, one of the things that people get a bit funny about, and I'm going to probably do, that'll probably be what the third episode is on, um, what something I really am quite fascinated by is this idea that people say, oh, well, you can't manifest that, you can't manifest this. People get very they place what people manifest, and they say, well, you can't manifest a person, because they view it in their minds as you're tampering with someone's free will. But what you're actually doing when you manifest someone or an experience, just take a person out of it for a second, but let's view it through the lens of an experience. This is just my belief. You're free to believe whatever you want, but when you manifest anything, you are tapping into a different frequency or consciousness or dimension where that person, that thing, already shows up as what you would like. So the more you align your thoughts, and some people will say your frequency. I don't necessarily believe frequency is integral to manifesting, but some people do. I have friends that do. Some people believe it's thoughts alone, but when you align with a different dimension, you align your thoughts with that. You think from that dimension, even though your reality doesn't currently match up. That is what you will end up manifesting. That's how manifestation is supposed to work, because it's all quantum physics. See, we go quantum immortality, quantum physics. It's all in the quantum, time and space, because everything is everything. Nothing is nothing. Even nothing is something. Like the concept of nothing, I'm about to get a bit big, but the concept of there being nothingness, it being a concept that we name nothing, makes it something. Does that make sense? I'm probably getting a bit too deep into it, but genuinely there is so much to learn about how spirit behaves, about how this all works, the rhyme and reason to the whole thing, why we're here. And people will call me a quack, I don't really care that much. I'm a very level-headed person when I have to be, and a non-level-headed person when I don't have to be. So there. I genuinely just love discussing this information. Let me know what you guys feel about any of these topics. Should I do a podcast? Should I look into a quantum immortality case? Should I do more research? Should I read a Reddit story and dissect it? That would be an interesting idea. Let me know. I really feel like I want to really embrace these concepts this year and delve into it through this podcast and really natter about things that I love and that are important. I don't want to neglect the fact that there are real world issues going on right now that are affecting people, so I will try to compile a list of resources for the fires in particular. And also, don't forget to support Palestine either. The Congo, Sudan, please look into all these systemic issues. They are vitally important. The Palestinian genocide especially so. Please look into things that are going on in the world and in your local community as well. I do feel this year we are being called to uplift each other, especially in these dark times. And I'm going to do a short little peppy video on it tomorrow probably, or the next day. But I want you guys to know that when you grasp spiritual concepts or when you become aware of something higher, you can be afraid of things. It's okay to be scared. But the more that you embrace certain aspects of life, the less scarier they seem. And apologies for the jump scare, that was someone's phone. But the more that you embrace life, the less scary it is. So yes, this was just a waffle about nothing in particular, probably. But I enjoy what I talk about here. If you would like me to talk about anything on this podcast, please do let me know in the comments on Spotify or on YouTube. I really look forward to hearing from you guys. Let me know what you'd like me to talk about. I hope this put you guys at ease, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Okay, bye.